Or may your house fall apart. May illness impede you. May your children turn their faces from you. What counts, Primo Levi reminds us, echoing the words of the Shema, one of the most important, perhaps the most important Jewish prayer from the Hebrew Bible, is the importance of understanding what lies around, under, between languages. These words express meanings we need to take seriously, to tease out as Confino has, as my daughter, in questioning my father, found. In coming together to commemorate Kristallnacht, we focus on the restorative and redemptive understanding of Torah, of the Hebrew Bible, of Jewish learning. In shared communal learning, we recall the Torah's call from its very beginning that all human beings are created in the image of God. Kristallnacht is not the only public commemoration of those dark days. In Europe and also now in the United States, in Israel, we mark the Day of Liberation, January 27th, when Auschwitz was liberated by Russian soldiers. And in September, especially in Italy, there is a day of Jewish learning which is celebrated when all come together, Jew, Christian, and Muslim, to study Jewish texts. So doing, we reclaim the Jewish heritage of learning that is foundational for Western culture. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, velo ata ben chorin lihibatel mimena. The Talmudic sage Rabbi Tarfon teaches, you are not required to complete the work, but you may not evade it. Like Primo Levi, we are required to bear witness to Kristallnacht, to the Holocaust, to the dreadful consequences of the Nazi, Primo Levi called it, gigantic biological and social experiment. For Primo Levi reminds us in his indispensable book, Survival in Auschwitz, what is at stake. He says of one of his fellow inmates, he told me a story. Today I have forgotten it, but it was certainly a sorrowful, cruel, and moving story. And so are all our stories, hundreds of thousands of stories, all different and all full of a tragic, disturbing necessity. We tell them to each other in the evening. They take place in Norway, Italy, Algeria, the Ukraine, and are simple and incomprehensible like the stories in the Bible. But are they not themselves stories of a new Bible? Mi ha raccontato la sua storia e oggi l'ho dimenticata, ma era certo una storia dolorosa, crudele e commovente, che tali sono tutte le nostre storie, centinaia di migliaia di storie, tutti diverse e tutti piene di una tragica, sorprendente necessità, e sono semplici e incomprensibili come le storie della Bibbia, ma sono anche se storia di una nuova Bibbia. He told me a story. Today I have forgotten it, but it was certainly a sorrowful, cruel, and moving story, because so are all our stories. Hundreds of thousands of stories, all different and all full of a tragic, disturbing necessity. We tell them to each other in the evening, and they are simple and incomprehensible, like the stories in the Bible. But are they not themselves stories of a new Bible? Thank you. I'm available to answer questions Or as my rabbi says, if you want to give the answers, I'll ask you the questions.
So, Manhattan College has this tradition, Murray, that we ask the student to ask the first question. And nobody else gets to ask it. No, I'm just kidding. Give a few seconds to students.
No questions, then I failed. I'll have to read it again.
Any students? Going once? Twice?
Will you stand up? I'm sorry, I don't hear you. No. But he talked to his friends. And he did not have, unlike Weiss Halivni, a deeply religious traditional education. But he was known among his friends as an extraordinary listener. And he talked to them. One of the things he mentions in his autobiographical account is that few of the Italians who were put into Auschwitz with him knew German. If you didn't know German, you didn't know what was being ordered for you to do. And he said, the second time the Nazi told you what to do, he didn't tell you, he hit you. And that the fact that the Italians did not know German made it, they were victims right away. Primo Levi knew a little German because he was a chemist. And at that time, up through World War II, all chemistry was studied from German textbooks. They were the great chemists. He actually paid a fellow concentration camp member in the only currency he had, in his ration of bread, to teach him some more German so he could understand what was being said to him in the camp. And though he had not gotten a traditional Jewish education, when he wrote this book, he knew something from the little bit of learning that he had had about Jewish learning. And so that poem with which the book begins echoes one of the central lines of passages in Jewish prayer. It's a fabulous book. I hope some of you can even read it in Italian.
Any questions?
I like how you spoke about, that these are not historical objects, but messages in a bottle. But I wonder, do you think we really do, as a culture now, take them as messages in a bottle, or do we see them as sort of static artifacts of the past, or discrete historical things to be studied?
I have a sense that if you read the poem, you realize that you are being addressed. Now, these days, people are good at ignoring things because we're bombarded with so much. But if you read the poem, Eve is talking to the reader. And in that sense, it's a message to us. But I can show you, because of the structure of the literary poem, that it's a message to us. Whether it will be a message for your generation and your children, only your generation and your children can answer. And in that sense, I have to say that being a teacher is a terribly difficult thing, because we don't know what that new generation of students will do with what would you have tried to teach them. On the other hand, if we teach you not answers, but how to ask questions, there's a chance. I don't know. But all those of you who know math and know logic know that the hardest part is figuring out the right question, because the right question is what makes the right solution possible. I don't know. Please, in the back.